Well, good evening, WNBA and LA Sparks fans, and welcome into the LA Sparks 365 Network, your 24/7 365 comprehensive home of the WNBA and your two-time WNBA champion Los Angeles Sparks. After a few weeks off, folks, because of busy work schedules, we are glad to be back here on LAS 365, here for WNBA 365 for Wednesday night, March 11th, 2015, alongside Chris and Mancy via Apple's FaceTime for this show, at least. We're going to work on getting him in here for Sparks Jam coming at the bottom of the hour. Campbell, joining you here from Studio 171 in San Diego. Chris, again, man, no surprise. It just seems like we get revved up for the show, and something on your end always seems to screw up, man. Other than that, though, man, how's it been, though, during the off time here? Again, I've been, busy, every day of the week for the past 2 weeks till the night. How has the sort of mini vacation been, I guess, from the network, dude?
Nothing much, just pretty much today I would have had a makeover, but just this Monday, just had to pay $400 and just it's terrible.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think I could say terrible about how busy I've been, folks. And if you've not seen anything on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, yeah, you've been under a rock the past weeks, folks. I have been slammed heavily across work, and it gets heavier tomorrow and Friday and over the weekend. With that, folks, so we've been away for a few weeks. We know that we missed a lot. We apologize for that. But again, we've had a lot going on, though, conflicting with our schedules. But of course, folks, this is your chance to be a part of history when the LA Sparks look to break barriers and break records. On August 30th this year, when the Sparks take on the San Antonio Stars, the Sparks look to break the WNBA record for attendance when they bring in 22,000 women to the game on August 30th. For more information about how you can nominate a lovely lady in your life or want tickets for more information, please visit lasparks.com. The LA Sparks We Are campaign is underway, and again, August 30th against San Antonio at 2 o'clock, the Sparks will look to set a new WNBA attendance record of having more than 22,000 people there for inspiring the women of our world again. Once more, Sparks looking to break the record for WNBA attendance again. For more information on this exclusive event, please visit lasparks.com. The LA Sparks, we are strong, we are women. We certainly are LA. Chris, we have missed a lot, as we said, over the past few weeks. A lot of moves have been made in regards to both the Sparks and the opposing 11 teams across the league. Chris, we'll go to a few Sparks headlines that we've missed over the past couple of weeks, again, because we've been we haven't had a chance to really come on here and say our piece. But Chris, we'll get to the notable first signing that the Sparks made during our brief vacation or brief off time, Chris, when the Sparks signed their first draft pick from a 2014 draft in the 6'7" BYU center, Jennifer Hampson. Now, folks, again, in case you're wondering about why Jen was out last year again, Jennifer had 1 year left of eligibility to play volleyball at Brigham Young University. And Chris, sometimes you have that change of heart where you're kind of, stuck in between, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Do I want to do that? And Chris, after finishing off a great volleyball season, now she is signed with Los Angeles. Chris, the numbers here, man, can sort of speak for themselves. 6'7" center, averaging almost 12 points per game, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks, playing about 22 and a half minutes in college. Chris, my little birdie, Chris, Emmanuel Mendoza, the guy that's been giving me all the inside information, Chris, said that Hampson was going to sign with the Sparks, Chris, and that she was going to be basically that she is the Sparks' Brittany Griner shutdown puzzle piece. Chris, there was a lot of anticipation about Jen playing this year because we know that she had that obligation to go back and play her last year of volleyball at BYU. So I guess, Chris, now that the Sparks have her locked in for the season, is this the main puzzle piece that the Sparks have been waiting for, needing to get, and have been waiting for quite some time, is getting someone that can match up one-on-one, mano-a-mano with Brittany Griner when, in fact, the Sparks do play Phoenix regular season plus postseason if it gets that far this year?
Yeah, I think that's the puzzle piece that the Sparks been missing on. a big size that could go up against Brittany Griner in the post, and just great to have her this season.
Yeah, Chris, phenomenal news. And I think that Penny Toller, Chris, I mean, we all knew, though, that, yes, stuff does come up, folks. That's in my case here. I mean, I've had more important things that have come up on my schedule in the post doing the network. We apologize for that, folks. But hey, when you're making money to do what you're supposed to be doing, and when it's your true passion, you're gonna be taking that side of the story. But Chris, this is a move, man, that maybe I'm not really ready to say yes, Chris, but it might be the move that finally gets the Sparks over the hump in the postseason. Is down low presence. And of course, Chris, especially when the Sparks have to play Phoenix, 4 or 5 times, when you have to deal with, with Brittany Griner at 6'8", then you have to deal with Sylvia Fowles twice every year when she's 6'6" for Chicago. I mean, you do have these big puzzle pieces on opposing teams, Chris, where the Sparks really hadn't had a puzzle piece like this. Now, it's good, though, man, that the Sparks have a key component for defense and also to be, a second or third string player at the center spot. Because of course, Chris, Jantel Lavender's name has been in the rumor mill about trades. This is her walk year after the contract ends, so we'll see what occurs. And then, of course, Chris, the other news, the Sparks re-signing veteran free agent forward and fan favorite, 12-year veteran Elena Beard to a contract back earlier this month. Per team policy, of course, folks, terms of the deal cannot be disclosed to the media. Chris, I'll tell you what, man, when you can bring back someone like Elena who's got 10, 12 years under her belt and has become a fan favorite, behind Candace Parker and Nneka Ogwumike, Chris, who's been that, one of the top 5 favorite players of the fans, Chris. Plus, man, her game speaks volumes. I mean, that southpaw shot, mid-range jumpers, the 3 balls, the great defense, the all-out effort she gives every night, Chris. What is LA retaining here in this veteran guard they re-signed, Chris, which is one of my favorite players, Chris, on the Sparks, one of our great friends on Twitter, Elena Beard, re-signed with the Sparks. Chris, final thoughts about AB staying in Los Angeles for at least one more year.
Just great to have AB back in LA for at least one more season. Just very great depth in starting rotation.
Yeah, I think with Elena bringing, again, maintaining the being that veteran leader, sort of being mom in a way, you're up against other teams and, she's out there, doing her job and everything else included with keeping her as well. Now, Chris, there's one name on here on the Sparks roster that should not be on the roster. And sadly, Chris, it is my homegirl, that is Candace Wiggins, Chris, who is no longer with Los Angeles, signed on Monday to a free agent deal, Chris, with the New York Liberty, out of all the teams to have gone to. But, Chris, it was sort of a shocker. I mean, as much as I've talked to her family down here, and Nathan and Meredith, if you guys are watching, much love and great seeing you guys a few weeks ago at Meredith's game at Francis Parker High School, where Nathan and I were more so talking about Wiggs and talking WNBA more so than watching the game. When I was there a few weeks ago, Chris, and, Nathan was upbeat about her re-signing with the Sparks. I mean, we both were, but more so he was, because he's got more of an edge of knowing information from her than I do, even though we are close friends on Twitter and over the phone. But, Chris, this was a complete, this was a show shocker. I mean, honestly, here, Chris, Candace took the time out of her day, to do the community appearances, Chris, to meet with the ticket holders and meet with, the clinics, Chris, and sadly, she doesn't quite get the return on her dollar that she wanted for, Chris, because I think she was expecting the Sparks to resign her, Chris, when she didn't get a contract offered. Now, I will say, though, here, Chris, to backtrack, that Ice had gone to the NBA All-Star game, Chris, in New York, and also went, Chris, to negotiate a contract with the Liberty. So, I mean, there must have been something that probably didn't sit right with Wiggins about why she didn't resign, Chris, because I think, man, that Magic Johnson would have re-signed her, Chris. But I think, though, that with Brian Agler having his international philosophy of bringing in all the players from overseas, plus re-signing Beard, you kind of thought about Wiggins, Chris. And, I mean, first of all, Chris, I'm not mad at all. I mean, I've already told Candace, congrats on the new deal. Of course I'm happy for her, man, because she gets to continue doing what she does best. But, Chris, I think, though, man, it's sort of, I think it stings more, Chris, because, here she took the time to go and do all these events across LA for the team, and basically, Chris, pumping up the product. but she's not even going to be in purple and gold next season. So I guess, Chris, your thoughts about sort of how Candace sort of got the cultural treatment by the Sparks because of Brian Agler's system, going overseas with all the players. And I guess, Chris, I guess just your overall thoughts, because man, that I'm in shambles over here because, she's a dear friend of mine. But I guess, man, your thoughts about hearing the news on Monday that Candace Wiggins had signed with New York and did not come back to Los Angeles.
Just very shocked that she ain't come back in LA. The Sparks, during that she's around the community in LA, just very shocked that she's not re-signed with LA.
I mean, because Chris, I was in the middle of doing my 4-hour radio show on Monday morning, and I was across Twitter just seeing what's going on, with you and all my followers out there, and plus on Instagram too with a few of my friends as well. And I guess, man, when I got the notification from the Liberty on Twitter from the network, and I saw that she signed with the Libs, I thought to myself, what did LA do wrong here? And I guess, Chris, more so, in a way, man, again, it's more so again that here. Most times, Chris, when players do those types of community events, man, that's a sign that they're still staying with the team, whether they're under contract or not. But something, just didn't seem right there, man, where, she's doing all this stuff for the Sparks, but yet goes and signs with New York. So, of course, Candace Wiggins, fan favorite in my city of San Diego and, of course, in my household. Great friend that I've, gotten to know very well, again, signing a deal with the New York Liberty, again, on a free agent deal signed on Monday earlier this weekend. Of course, Chris, we missed a pretty huge trade that went down while we were away for a few weeks, which, Chris, saw Cappie Pondexter get dealt from New York back to her hometown of Chicago, Illinois, Chris, for resident New Yorker Epiphany Prince. Now, Chris, this move bolsters both teams' side of a story. You have Cap, Chris, going back to Chicago, even though she's born in San Diego and went to Chicago when she was very young. Chris, I think, man, that this is actually something that I brought up last night on my sports show was change of scenery. Chris, Cap had gone to New York after having success with Diana in Phoenix in 2009. And yeah, Chris, franchise player, but again, did not get out of round one with the Liberty, Chris, and had to go through a few years of, not the best of teams, dealing with, not only, Chris, with Bill Lambier as your head coach, Chris, but again, man, a roster that was walking on eggshells with so many players that were injured, old bodies, retirement home status, Chris. We brought it back in August. So, Chris, I guess, man, in your view, who won that trade, though? Was it New York getting Epiphany Prince, or was it Chicago getting back Cappie Pondexter? Reason being why?
I think probably Chicago getting Pondexter back, because going back to her hometown team and just posted up their lineup.
Chris, I think you'd say that both teams won, but I think I think though, Chris, perhaps I think New York gets the better end because they got a player, Chris, that's younger in age. Because we know, Chris, Bill Lambier's philosophy has not worked since he's gone from the Shock to the Liberty. Of course, when he brought that Detroit mentality from the 03, 06, and 09 teams that won the title with the Shock and Detroit, Chris, again, was bringing back all the old players, like Lynette Pearson, who's now with Tulsa, and bringing in Delisha Milton-Jones and Chris, all these age veterans again, where there was no you were basically, the team didn't gel, I guess, is what I'm getting at, Chris, because you had so many players that were, well out of their prime, battling injury or whatnot. And now I think that with Piff going there, Chris, that sort of helps New York kind of get that age factor down in just a wee bit, because we still know, man, that there's still a lot of old players on that roster at this point in time. So, I mean, we'll see what occurs out of it at this point in time as we look back over a few moves made over the past couple of days here. Not much else has really occurred, folks. We do have one more here to get to as well, with the Atlanta Dream re-signing their star center Erica DeSosa to a deal a couple days ago. as well, just with her staying down there in Atlanta. Chris, DeSouza is sort of one of those under-the-radar sneaky players that's really good, that re-signed with her resident team over the offseason, of course. And I think, man, that DeSouza, is sort of the Eastern Conference version of Brittany Griner, Chris, with her size. I mean, and being at center, Chris, and, a very hard-nosed, hard-driven, very, tough player to defend inside, Chris. And, I think, man, that with her staying, that gives Atlanta, not only, Chris, a veteran presence in the paint, but it gives her gives them a very tough body to deal with as well, which is Erica DeSouza. Chris, any thoughts about Erica staying with Atlanta for at least one more year, Chris? Again, of course, under one of our favorite people too, Chris, current head coach Michael Cooper.
Just very great to see Erica DeSouza play at least probably one more season in Atlanta.
Well, we wish, Chris, and you were on the right track. She was drafted by Los Angeles in her first season, but didn't sign though, and went on to a better place for her as well. And of course, folks, another announcement made over the past couple days: the 2015 WNBA All-Star Game will be held this year back in Connecticut at the Mohegan Sun Arena in Unicastable, Connecticut, being hosted again by the Connecticut Sun. Now, Chris, it's sort of weird, man, and this was actually brought up in my local newspaper today about how the Mountain West Conference men's tournament is always held in Las Vegas at UNLV's home arena, which is the Thomas & Mack Center. Chris, why does it seem like either it's always LA, Seattle to open the season, and every other year the All-Star Game is in Connecticut? Chris, what are your thoughts about having the All-Star Game back in Connecticut where we just had it there 2 years ago?
Just seems weird that LA always opens with Seattle, and just cursed with Seattle.
I think, Chris, the Sparks are cursed with Seattle, and the WNBA is in love with Connecticut for the All-Star Game every other year. So, again, folks, 2015 All-Star Game, Unicastable, Connecticut, Mohegan Sun Arena this year. A date and time, July 25th, 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern on ESPN. Chris, some other small news out of the WNBA tonight, of course, Chris, was the exciting news, Chris, of the Indiana Fever, Chris, re-signing Tamika Catchings to her final contract for the last 2 years of her deal, Chris. I know, man, that, we talked a lot at least about Diana Taurasi sitting out this year because of the overseas play. But, Chris, I mean, we kind of knew that when Becky Hammon retired last year, things wouldn't be the same, Chris. And now, man, it's really going to be different after 2016, Chris, when you see Catch not playing for the Fever in 2016, Chris, a player that's had a star-studded career, being a part of a team at Tennessee in 97 that went undefeated and won the national championship, 9-time All-Star, gold medalist, a 2012 champion. Chris, final thoughts about Tamika Catchings ending her career with the Fever, and also, Chris, in your mind, now that Hammond's gone, Chris, how weird will it be to not have Tamika Catchings, one of the WNBA's greatest players of all time, not playing after 2016?
It's going to seem weird after 2016 season, not seeing Tamika Catchings.
Yeah, I mean, man, it's always tough, man, when you see, when you see these tremendous players, whether they're pros or, college kids, Chris, you see them move on to bigger and better things after their career ends, Chris. And again, man, that's why I said, why do you think, Chris, I asked both Parker and Wiggins during my interviews with them back in September and October, after your playing days are done, what, is your future going to hold, I guess, is what I'm getting at with that. As a friend of mine who is the wife of a assistant coach for the Point Loma Nazarene women's basketball team, they're playing up in the NCAA Division II big dance up in Anchorage, and I reposted a team photo from today, and she asked where her husband was. Was it too cold outside? I would assume so. It was 9 degrees when they got there. in any case here today. But Chris, as we kind of look back over, man, there's been a lot that's been going on, of course, over the past 2 weeks, man. I guess I'll end here, Chris, as we get ready to wrap up and try to get you in the hangout for our next show, of course, folks. And if we can do it, we'll have Sparks Fam up next. We'll take your Instagram, you'll take your tweets, Instagram photos, live Q&A, and much more. Chris, as we get ready to wrap up here for this show, man, your overall final thoughts so far on the offseason for the Sparks, moves made, everything else included, man, and anything else in regards to women's basketball you'd like to get to as we get ready to wrap up and try to get you in the next show. What do you got?
Just very great so far. Free agency and moves around the WNBA. Just can't wait for the 2015 season to start.
We are getting there, dude, ever slowly but surely, and we cannot wait much longer for the 2015 season. Of course, folks, even though the Sparks season has ended and it's coming up very soon, stay on top of your LA Sparks across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and on YouTube by liking the Sparks on Facebook at facebook.com/LA Sparks. Follow the team on Instagram and Twitter at LA_Sparks. Again, that's at LA_Sparks. You can pin the Sparks to your pin boards on Pinterest at Pinterest.com, keyword in Los Angeles Sparks. Subscribe to the Sparks on YouTube at youtube.com/user/the official page of the Los Angeles Sparks, or like the Sparks community page on LinkedIn, linkedin.com, keyword in Los Angeles Sparks. With that, folks, we will take a brief timeout. When we come back, we'll either have Sparks Fam, or we may make a in-game substitution and possibly do the two-man show of record, the guys with the petition. We'll see what happens here, folks. Until then, we'll be right back after this quick timeout here on LAS 365 with more to come after this. Don't go away.